So that shows an FS about 30 hertz. This is the new one. This is the Quad Stack Slim. It's basically my replacement or my alternative to the 12W7 motor. I have a couple of different versions that I'm experimenting with. This was the first one because I wanted to see how the excursion goes. It uses a, I have a whole bunch of the, it's called the 3 HP Slim. So when I was getting a bunch of coils made from PE, we would get the 3 HP made, which is pretty hardy. I think it's about 80, no, that's not 85. I think it's about 83, 84 millimeter on the OD. And sometimes we would get some slim ones, and then I got some made, and they were actually wrong, and they let me keep like a case of them or something like that. And then we ordered the right one, and then the problem that I ran into, I realized, was that the coil was too light, and so that caused a different problem. And so I got a shit ton of these coils, and I'm like, how do I use them? And so this is what I came up with. Was I'm actually building motors and woofers all around a coil that I don't really like, but it still turned out really well. So on this one, what I did was I used a really soft spider, which is what JL does. See if I can find one. Here we go. It's this quad-leaded spider that you get from Lord of Bass. I'll put a link to it in the description. So, but it's very compliant. It's very soft. And so that's what you want to use if you're going to use a very light coil. This one is aluminum. The good news is that it's 60 millimeter tall. So it's got plenty of sweet spot on it as it's going through the stroke. The stroke is limited, of course, by the spider. And this particular one, because I'm using the 4-spoke frame, I'm using just the Blackjack, or not, I'm sorry, not Blackjack, 5 Series cone. We'll market it under the Blackjack brand under something else. This is the new Bluetooth version. And then I lucked out and got, I was able to put the concave cap on there, the carbon fiber. So, but now I'm feeling a little down today. I made some 8's for a longtime partner guy of mine, plumber. He's a very successful plumber. He went from, just him and his wife answering calls to now he's got 5 trucks. I'll put a plug for him in the description. He does great work. He's done lots of work for me. He's been very patient with me. His brother basically found me on OfferUp or something like that, and then turned me on to him. And this was a great system for him. But I had a lot of problems with building the 8's. Again, I don't like building 8's, mostly because people have high expectations. So, and the problem that I ran into was that they lasted 5 minutes. So, and those are those quad stack ones. They're even bigger than this one. This one has that's a triple stack. So, and I built them with the biggest, strongest coils I could, which was the 2 3/8 copper, with the big surrounds and everything like that. Let me show you those. This one, from Lord of Bass. Put a link to that too. I think I just got to stop building subwoofers. So, because I think the problem that I'm running in with him is that, he's been very successful with his plumbing business. He's making a lot of money, which I have no problems with. I'm very proud for him and very glad for his success. I think the problem is you start getting into, he's also kind of young. He's in his 30s, and he's got a big family. I think he's working on kid number 4 or 5 or something like that. A lot of people just get into they get successful, and they get successful young, and they've never had any setbacks. And and this happens with people that buy subwoofers from me. It's like they get this high performance machine, and their expectations are just really high, and I don't do anything magic. I really don't. I just typically do it cheaper than everybody else. But one of the reasons why I do it cheaper than everybody else is because I don't have to pay anybody. So the bad side is I got to do it all myself, and so I got to do it all myself. there's nobody here to help me. So the lag times are just very terrible, and I apologize, but that's all I can do right now. But no, Sherry and I were talking about it over breakfast. The guy's a plumber, and I tried to put it in a way that he understands, which is that if you go out to, like, let's say it's not even an owner. No, let's say it is an owner. That's actually a better example. You know, an owner says, hey, my sewage is clogged, you know, there's a problem. And they go out there and they have to dig up the yard and fucking cut open the pipe, and come to find out, you know, there's a tree root that, you know, was sapping off the sewage, which, you know, trees love because it's all that poopy nutrients that they love. And so they cut that out. They clean out the tube, and, you know, they find a couple of, hold on. Oh, that's a good one. They found a couple of, you know, I don't want to say suspect items, but, you know, troublesome items. Like they find some tampons, maybe a whole diaper, you know, and then they clean it out, and they probably don't even say anything. They just say, yeah, there was a tree root and there's some other problems. And then, so they get done, and let's say the bill's $2,000, $3,000, and they had problems, and, you know, they had to get a special fitting because the house was old, and because the contractor that built the house went cheap and only used like a, you know, whatever, some sort of shitty pipe or something like that. So anyways, again, this is all hypothetical. This is all just story, analogy, parallelogram. It's a parallel story. So anyways, a week later, customer calls back and says, hey, that problem again, you know, the sewage is blocked. You guys didn't really do a good job. And, you know, the plumber guy's like, what? I did a great fucking job. You know, there was tampons in there, there was diapers, there was all kinds of stuff that didn't belong in there. And I know I did a really good job. And so then he goes back out, and it's tampons and diapers all over again. And so it's, you know, and I've been doing this a really long time, and I used to really, I feel, you know, I feel bad for people just because it's like, it's definitely disenchanting to spend all that money and then wait all that time. And then, you know, it's like saving up to go to Disneyland, and then what do you know, a pandemic breaks out and you got to reschedule. It's just the way it goes. And I don't know what to tell you. And people just seem to have such high expectations that it's just bound for failure. Now, here's the flip side. Here's my side. I'm in the same economy that they are. I'm having trouble getting stuff here on time. I'm having trouble keeping up. I'm having trouble paying rent. My rent is too much for me, not for this place, but for me. Do I say no to the money? Aha, see? This is my survival. If I fail at this, I lose everything. So landlord gets everything. I can't even afford to move like this stuff. That's like easily 20 grand. Just in shipping, not alone the labor and the packaging and the palleting and all that other stuff. So it's like, what do I do? So I'm like, I got to figure out how to come up with $3,500 every month and pay it. And and here's the difficult part. I give people a discount typically up front because I know it's going to take a little bit, or, you know, and I even try to negotiate them and warn them and say it's going to take a little bit. Again, a little bit to them is different than a little bit to me. So, but I still take the money. And do I deliver? Of course I deliver. That's a given. I don't. There's so much more money in delivering and making a relationship than there is in cheating someone. I wish people would understand that. So, but a lot of people have been cheated or burned or whatever like that, and so sometimes they get people that just don't understand or don't care, and just like, fuck you, Pat. And then for some reason that turns into that I'm a pedophile. I'm like, okay, that I don't understand. But again, you know, like I was telling you guys the other day about the way Kevy Cakes blew up and had Peoria police call me and all that kind of stuff. You know, I can't control how psycho people are, and I don't know how psycho people are. And if you're a guy, at least even in your 30s, if not your 40s, and you're straight and you've run across a couple of crazy bitches, and typically the hotter they are, the crazier they are. And I got a whole theory on that, and I'd love to hear Jordan Peterson's take on that. Mostly I think it's because young girls who are pretty receive attention that isn't warranted, and they either figure out how to deal with it or they rebel. And typically if they rebel, they start having, it's not just daddy issues, but some of them go like goth, or they make themselves ugly on purpose because they don't feel worthy of receiving free stuff from dudes. So, but it was best captured in that that movie Horrible Bosses with Jennifer Aniston. And there's that moment where Jennifer's like, ever since I was 11. And then Jason Bateman looks at, oh, I forgot his name. I think it's the other Jason. Anyways, they look at each other, they're all 11? It's like, yep. And that's just the way it is, and there's nothing you can do about it. So, but I don't know, man. Just people have a lot of expectations. I'm going on a little bit of a rant just so that I can get it out of my system. But once I put it out in the environment, the people that understand will pick up on it. And again, I don't want your sympathy. That's not what I want. I don't want people to go, oh, poor Patrick. That's not what I want. What I want people to do is understand that you are not alone. I am not alone. Lots of people have these problems. Lots of people run into these situations. And what really helps is that we can sort of either, I don't want to say lean on each other, but definitely communicate with one another so you don't feel so isolated. Because that's really one of the hard parts is dealing with struggles. Everybody deals with struggles. That's a given. So, but it helps if there's books, if there's videos, if there's something to give you some guidance. So, because most people are like me, where you had parents that really didn't give a shit and just figured, they got their own lives. They don't really need to actually raise you and answer questions and sort of guide you and parent you. And so, it's nice to do that. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why I compensate for sharing too much. I overshare. Because you take somebody else like David Moore from fixmyspeaker.com/PSI. I have yet to see one video of David doing anything speaker related. Maybe like demos. That's about it. And most of that was with JP when him and JP were buddies. So, but other than that, no videos. And he's fine. He's successful. He's very, very, very well off. At least as far as I can tell. I don't know. I don't see any videos saying anything otherwise. So, but mostly I just want people to try to understand. And also, again, I don't want sympathy. That's not what I'm after. I just want to communicate and let you know that I have hard times too. I'm just like you. I take big poops too. I clog toilets too, just like you. And also, if anything, just to lower your expectations. You'll be much happier. So, and if you, again, I've talked about this, well, gosh, lots of videos ago, that if you lower your expectations enough, you're grateful for everything. You wake up and you go, still breathing. This is awesome, And then you go down your list of, gratuities of things you're grateful for. And so for me, of course, I look like a cop, which is kind of good because people don't fuck with me as much as they probably would and should, especially like when I was a kid, I got bullied a lot. Because I was a little too big for my age group. Does that make sense? And so then they go, well, hey, you're big. And then it's typically really small guys that feel threatened by my mere presence. So, but anyways, I'm all grown up. And now if people assume that I'm a cop, I go, yep, I'm a cop. Don't do drugs in front of me. When really, I'm just a weirdo that sucked his own dick, and makes woofers out of his house. So, whatever you want to make of that, I don't really care anymore. So, but I think that's what I wanted to show you. Oh yeah, we can get back on track. So I made I'm making a 15-inch Vato Extreme, and I have the 10-inch version. Somebody had mentioned it, and then they're like, hey, what's the specs on it? I'm like, I don't know, because I've never made one before, but here's the 10-inch one. So we ended up using a, this is the 5 Series cone. I call it the 5 Series, even though I think George Campos at Lord of Bays calls it the 7 Series now, even though this is the surround that I want. But anyways, I had to put some plastic in there to kind of fill in the spaces, and then what you do is you put a little bit of epoxy, not a lot because you don't want it to drip, and then what it does is sort of clogs. And so I'll come back today and put another layer and then see how that sits, and then I'll come back and put another layer. But anyways, somebody wanted a 10, and he was like, you know, what's the box specs? And I'm like, this thing's going to have a lot of BL. That's a really big motor. It's a really long coil. It's a 60 millimeter coil, all on a 10. So it'll probably only need a box of like half a cubic, maybe 0.65 cubic feet. It'll probably have a VAS that small, and it, you know, it'll handle a good 1,000 watts or something like that. So, but anyways, I'm also making a 15-inch version so I can get the specs. I don't have the computer up and running again, but I do think I have spare motherboard and CPU set up so I can put that together. I'd love to know if somebody. I have a couple of Raspberry Pis. I'd love to run Windows XP on one of those, but I'm not quite sure how to do it. I guess I can put an ISO file on a USB or something like that. I don't know. Let me show you the other version. This is more of the what I would represent an open source version of the JL Audio 12W7, because it uses a 9-inch spider. Here's the quad stack. It uses a slim gap. And this one I think uses this one uses the aluminum coil. I do have a copper version, which is the Slim Jim coil. It's a little bit heavier, but that's what I wanted to sort of experiment with, was to see what it responds to. And as you saw in the black one that I showed you in the beginning of the video, the FS ends up being about 30 hertz, which is good enough. So, but this is the Slim Jim version, which is a little bit heavier. It uses a flat copper. Again, I've talked about this with a lot of voice coils. There's no difference between flat and round, or even hexagon. If you're a Morel fan, doesn't make any difference. There's not really much of a difference either in using aluminum versus Kapton. I prefer aluminum just because it gives a little more heat sink mass, because the whole thing ends up acting as a heat sink. I also prefer copper because it has a higher what's the word? It has better heat properties, and it handles abuse better. I also like it because it's more compact, which means you can put a certain number of windings on there, and the gap doesn't have to be as big. Because once you start getting into the bigger gaps, like I was talking to somebody about the ZVX, Scar ZVX. The original version was like really big. It was like 89 millimeter OD, which is like insanely big. But they put a really big aluminum. I don't know if it was a 6-layer. It was probably like an 8-layer, like a true 8-layer. And so it was like it was like a cartoon, and it was just too big. And the problem with doing that is when you make the gap larger, you lose some of your BL flux. So you want a thin gap, but you don't want super thin. So like, let me show you an example of something. Sorry. Let me show you an example of something with a really, that's the HD. Where's that slim at? These are all slims. So as I said, I just mark it slim so I know what it is, which is, I think it's 82 millimeter, which is the OD. But, that's what I'll show you, is those Turbo Sounds motors. A lot of surface area for magnetic flux. What ends up happening is these plates gather all that flux and they focus it into the gap. Let me get out of the sun. So not a very, thick stack, but this is lots of magnets all laminated together with some epoxy. It's probably just an acrylic epoxy. And then, that's the back side. I'll get the front side. And so here's the front side. And look at that gap. It's super tiny. Super thin. Very high BL. However, when you use a really thin coil like that, there's not a lot of mass to it. and that's both like weight, like physical mass, and also thermal mass. So a lot of times thermal mass is directly proportional to, it depends on what material you're using, but directly proportional to the heft of the whatever you're heating up. So in some cases like this is aluminum. Aluminum is preferred just because it's cheaper. But copper is actually way better to use as heatsink. But if you had an air conditioner like this made with a copper heatsink, now they would only do that like on, like a satellite or something in the military that is, going into space and is really, really expensive, and they need a lot of heatsink in a very small space, and that's why you'd use copper. So, wanted to show this. This is the end of the ferrite. This is the last of the ferrite. This is the rest of the buyout from Volcano Audio, which this is all American-made ferrite from Crucible out of Kentucky. Not that it makes it any better quality than the Chinese stuff, but it's just, I don't know, some people like America, and so whatever. I want to use every advantage I can to be as successful as possible, because even then, I'm white, I'm a man, I'm American, right? And for the rest of the world, I got it made. Like, there's nothing I can fuck up. I'm like, no, there's plenty I can fuck up. There's plenty I can mess up, and it's still difficult to be successful and escape poverty. So, but I think that was it. I'll call this a Wednesday rant. And if you guys see anything, sometimes I do these videos and I go through and I just, somebody's like, hey, at 4 minutes and 30 seconds, here's, I was looking at blah, blah, blah. And I go, okay, I can go back and do a follow-up video or something like that. Some MTX frames up there. So, but anyways, I love you guys. I will talk to you soon. I will do some more videos on some of the stuff that I got from Recoil that's in the Amazon store. What else? I don't know. There's always more videos. I love you guys. I'll talk to you later.